What's up guys, we're Ian and Anna, and in this video we're going to share the top 10 things to do in Madeira. Let's waste no time and jump right into number 10, the Fanal Forest.
Walking in the Fanal Forest is like walking in a fairy tale. This meadow high in the mountains is filled with massive ancient laurel trees that are up to 800 years old. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site because these trees are one of the last remaining examples of Europe's original rainforest, which dates back thousands of years. The reason this place is extremely unique is because of its fog covering the meadow during certain parts of the day, making it super magical and even a little eerie. It definitely looks like you could film a scary movie here. Ian and I tried to go for sunrise one morning, but the rain and winds were so crazy, we ended up going a few days later in the afternoon instead, and to our surprise, it was completely sunny with no fog whatsoever. If you are trying to visit with fog, make sure to come for sunrise because your chances will be much higher. Even without the fog though, walking around is still 100% worth it. I would actually recommend bringing food up here to have a little picnic because it was one of the most relaxing and calm places we have ever been. One of my favorite parts about the Fanal Forest is that you can walk freely wherever you want, and we stumbled upon a ton of cows grazing. We couldn't believe how chill they were with all the people surrounding them. This forest is on the northwest side, so it will take 1 hour and 10 minutes to get there if you are driving from Funchal. If you aren't renting a car on Madeira, you can scan this QR code here to go on the best Jeep tour on this part of the island. I'll also link all the best tours and experiences in the description below this video, so definitely make sure to check that out. Now let's move on to number 9, Funchal.
Funchal is the capital city of Madeira with a population of around 100,000 people, and it's probably where most of you will be staying. If you're wondering where to stay on the island, I would highly recommend the southern towns like Funchal, Ribeira Brava, Calheta, and our personal favorite, Pau do Mar. The reason I recommend these places is because the south of the island gets the most sunshine, and we saw that to be very true during our 2-week trip in March. We stayed at an Airbnb in Pau do Mar, which is a small fishing village around 45 minutes away from Funchal. This place blew us away because we were staying right on the ocean with the most epic mountains behind us, and the best part, there were no tourists around, so it was extremely quiet. If you're not going to rent a car in Madeira, I would highly recommend staying in Funchal because this is where all the tours around the island will start from. Unlike the rest of the island, Funchal feels like you're on mainland Portugal. There's actually so much to do here, like visit 2 different botanical gardens, walk around the old town that dates back to the 1400s, take the cable car up to Monte, and of course glide down the hill on the famous toboggans. What's crazy is that these wicker baskets were the island's first form of downhill transportation back in the 1800s. Now visitors from around the world are pushed down this 2-kilometer stretch of road by drivers dressed in traditional clothing. The toboggan ride is located in Monte, and there are 2 ways I recommend to get there. The first option is to take the cable car from Funchal up to Monte and then walk 10 minutes to the starting point. And the other option is to take a tuk-tuk tour around Funchal, which will include a stop at the Monte toboggan rides. The reason I recommend the tuk-tuk ride is because after the toboggan ride finishes, you don't have to walk 30 minutes back to the city, but instead the tuk-tuk will be waiting for you at the bottom. The 10-minute ride on the toboggan costs 30 euros for 2 people, and make sure to bring cash because they don't accept card payments. Sadly, we had some bad weather during our time on the island, and the only time to come up here was in the afternoon one day. To our surprise, the line was absolutely massive because the crowds from the cruise ships all came at the same time. To avoid this problem, I would go right when it opens at 9 a.m. so you can get right on without a wait. For a 10-minute ride, we decided it wasn't worth it, so we didn't end up going, but it does look like such a fun and unique experience, so I can't wait to come back and try it one day. Next up is number 8, the Porto Moniz Natural Pools.
These natural pools were formed over thousands of years when lava from volcanic eruptions solidified after hitting the cold waters of the Atlantic Ocean. The pools are filled with crystal clear salt water that dumps over the sides of the ocean, and with the massive waves come tons of fish. What I loved about this place is it had tons of black lava rock formations surrounding it, and they contrasted with the blue water so beautifully. This is one of the most visited places on the entire island, so be ready for crowds no matter what time you visit. It takes 1 hour to get to Porto Moniz from Funchal, and the entrance fee to the pools is €3 per person. Even though it was cloudy and a little cold in March, we ended up bringing our goggles and swimming around the pools for 1 hour. It was actually so much fun and not too cold. My favorite part was going to the edge of this natural infinity pool as the waves crashed over the side. My least favorite part of this area was that it was super built up with modern buildings and facilities. I do hope with rising tourism, the Madeira government doesn't do this to more locations around the island because it definitely ruins the overall vibe of the area. Anyways, 5 minutes down the road from the pools is a place called Ilhas da Ribeira da Janela. This will be a quick stop, but definitely worth it because off the coast of this beach are massive rock formations jutting out of the water. If you're into photography or videography, this spot is one of the best locations to take in the sunrise, and the best part, there will be no one here during that time. Now on to number 7, dolphin and whale watching. Madeira is one of the best places in the world to see dolphins and whales year-round. Most boat tours will leave from Funchal's port and sail along the south coast looking for wildlife. One cool thing about some of these boat companies is that they will have spotters in the mountains on the island using binoculars to look for dolphins and whales. It's really nice that they do this because it will increase your chances to see wildlife. And I don't want to get your hopes up because nothing is guaranteed, and sometimes people will go on these boats and won't see a thing. But at least you get to see the island from the water, which I think would still be 100% worth it because this island is so stunning. The most common types of animals you'll see are sperm whales, pilot whales, and bottlenose dolphins. We talked to some locals and they recommended coming between the months of April and October for the best chances to see wildlife. Sadly, like we said before, the weather in March was really bad during our last couple of days on the island, so our boat tour got canceled and we were very bummed. This was something we were extremely looking forward to. Definitely make sure to check the weather forecast leading up to your trip and book a boat tour on a day without crazy winds and rain. Next up, we have number 6, traditional food and drinks.
We came to this island for the hiking and swimming, but left with an obsession with a couple of the local dishes and drinks. First things first, you'll have to try the famous bolo do caco, which is a flat, round piece of wheat bread with butter, garlic, and parsley. It's basically the best garlic bread ever, and you will find it at every single restaurant you go to. Next traditional dish is the espetada, which is translated to kebab, but more specifically, kebabs of beef cooked vertically so the juice and fats drip down the skewer. By far the best place to get espetada is at a restaurant called Santo Antonio, which is only a 15-minute car ride from Funchal. This place blew our minds, and it's definitely not a tourist trap at all because we went for lunch one day and we're totally surrounded by locals. The way they present the espetada is very unique because it hangs right in front of you on the table, and if you go, I recommend ordering the beef espetada, chicken wings, fries, and a salad. Everything but the salad is loaded with garlic, so if you don't like garlic, you probably won't like the food that much. For all that food and some drinks, it was only 50 euros, which I thought was very cheap, especially because that meal was the most memorable during our trip. Madeira, being an island, is also known for its freshly caught seafood. My favorite seafood, not only on Madeira but in Portugal in general, is called robalo, also known as grilled sea bass. You can scan this QR code on the screen right here if you want to take the best food tour on Madeira that will offer a lot of these dishes and drinks I'm talking about. Now, you are on island time and it's always 5 o'clock somewhere, so let's talk about traditional drinks. First, the best place to get drinks on Madeira is a place called Taberna de Pancha. This bar is set in the most beautiful valley surrounded by towering mountains and waterfalls. The inside of this place is also covered in all sorts of postcards, business cards, and Polaroids, which was fun to look at while you wait. Madeira's most famous drink is called pancha, which is made with sugarcane rum, lemon, and honey. These might look like small glasses, but they are extremely strong, and a couple of panchas can get you pretty drunk, so watch out. Although lemon is the traditional way to make pancha, there are many different kinds like passion fruit, mint, and orange. Passion fruit was by far my favorite flavor, so make sure to try some and let me know what you think. The other famous drink on Madeira is called the Nikita, which is made with fresh pineapple, wine, beer, and ice cream. This drink might be the ultimate island drink, and I liked it better than the pancha, so make sure to try it at least once on your trip. This drink is also said to be named after the famous Elton John song called Nikita. Now let's move on to number 5, canyoneering.
If you don't know what canyoneering is, you basically hike through canyons and rappel down waterfalls, you cliff jump off boulders, and ride down natural rock slides. We met with our tour guides in Nuns Valley, which is one of the most beautiful areas on the entire island. The reason this area is called Nuns Valley is because in 1566, pirates attacked Funchal, and so the nuns fled to this valley to seek refuge. Right when we arrived, our guides had all the equipment ready for us, and we just put on our wetsuits, shoes, and helmets. After a 10-minute hike, it was time to start this crazy experience by rappelling down 4 waterfalls in a row. The highest waterfall we ventured down was approximately 20 meters high. It was crazy. So neither of us have ever rappelled before. This was definitely a learning curve, especially because you're doing all the work. You slowly fall backwards and let go of the tension on the rope to walk down these waterfalls. And although it was challenging, it was extremely rewarding to learn. We went on a very cold and windy day, but luckily our wetsuits and our adrenaline kept us warmer than we thought, so don't be scared to come when the weather isn't that good. The guides on this tour were some of the best we've ever had during our travels because they made us feel extremely safe and made us laugh the entire time. So if you want to book this same tour company as us, you can scan this QR code right here. There's 3 difficulty levels of canyoneering, and we ended up trying level 2. We thought it was the perfect balance between scary and fun. Then we ended this 3-hour experience with a natural rock slide and a cliff jump. I'll be honest, this was by far the best part. Watching everyone curl up into a ball and slide down was hilarious, and when you finally go yourself, it's wild. Many people in our group were scared of heights, but the tour guide made sure to make them feel very safe and took the time to explain how to jump and where to jump. That last cliff jump was 18 meters high and the perfect finale to this once-in-a-lifetime experience. Next up, we have number 4, Caldero Verde Levada Hike.
If you're coming to Madeira to hike, you have to do at least one levada. A levada is an old stone irrigation system used for crops, and these streams of water will take you through some of the most scenic landscapes on the island. There's actually more than 1,300 miles of levadas scattered all across the island and along the coast, up to scenic viewpoints overlooking cities and through the most lush forest. I chose to get up one morning, leaving Anna and the kittens behind, and went to the Caldera Verde Levada hike for a solo sunrise mission. From our Airbnb in Pal del Mar, it took me an hour and 20 minutes to reach the trailhead, but if you're driving from Funchal, you can reach this hike in about 45 minutes. I was so excited when I got there to see no cars around, and that's probably because it was raining pretty heavy the night before. These Levada hikes do have some sketchy parts, and because of bad weather, could be closed at random due to rock slides, so make sure to be careful if you go, especially in bad weather like me. I talked to some locals and they actually recommended this Levada hike because it has a little bit of everything, including tunnels, waterfalls, lush greenery, and a whole lot of fun. Another great part about this hike is that anyone is able to do it, including families with little kids, because it's flat the entire way and super easy in my opinion. You will get 100% wet on this hike because throughout you are walking under waterfalls and there is water falling from the sides along the entire path. I forgot to bring a raincoat, so I got totally soaked, and by the end of it, it felt like I jumped into a swimming pool. But it was one of the most fun hikes I have gone on in my life because I felt like a kid again. This Levada hike makes you feel like you're in the Jurassic Park or Indiana Jones movie the entire time. This is a 13-kilometer or 8.5-mile out and back hike that took me around 3.5 hours to complete. If you don't want to hike behind crowds the whole time, get to the parking lot and start the hike around 20 minutes before the sun rises. There are a total of 4 tunnels, so make sure to bring a headlamp so you don't hit your head like me because I ended up forgetting mine. Once again, bring a headlamp, rain jacket, change of clothes, towel, snacks, and some water. One thing I did love about the bad weather was that the 2 big waterfalls on this hike were even more powerful. The biggest of the 2 waterfalls is at the end of the hike, and it is 100% worth getting to. There is a longer section to this hike called the Inferno, but it was closed due to a rock slide when I was there, so make sure to check that out if you want to do it. I know it could be a little risky, but I think the Levada hike was even better when it rained a little, and if you have a really cloudy day on your trip, definitely do this hike. Now let's move on to number 3, the São Lourenço Hike.
That Levada hike made Ian feel like he was in Jurassic Park. The São Lourenço Hike will make you feel like you're on another planet. But before we talk about the hike itself, we first need to share this epic sunrise spot only 5 minutes down the road. The name's too hard to pronounce, so I'll just have it pop up on the screen, but we couldn't have asked for a better sunrise on this day with those big waves crashing against the dramatic, colorful cliffs. It was definitely one of the most memorable moments during our time on the island. All you have to do is pull up to this location and you're already at the viewpoint, so it's super easy and convenient. Another great thing about this area is that it's located only 35 minutes away from Funchal. We arrived at the parking lot for the São Lourenço Hike at 8 a.m. after we took in the sunrise. It's a pretty large parking lot with tons of spots, so if you get here before 9, you should be okay. But if you haven't noticed, we keep saying to get up for sunrise and start hikes as soon as possible in the morning because Madeira has become extremely crowded. If you're not a morning person though, sunset is also a perfect time to go on a hike in Madeira because there won't be as many crowds. This is because the crowds come from cruise ships and tours, and a lot of those do not run at night. So you still will beat the crowds in the evening, but of course, make sure to bring a headlamp. This is an 8-kilometer or 5-mile out and back hike that can take between 3 and 4 hours depending on how fast you hike. From the very beginning, this scenery completely blew us away with the massive orange rock formations surrounding you the entire time. Within the first 30 minutes, you even reach this crazy viewpoint of the coastline, and I think it's one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen in my life. I seriously had to sit here for like 20 minutes just to take it in. So if you're a family with kids or you're a little bit older and can't hike the entire way, just walk the first 15 minutes to an hour because in my opinion, this is where the most beautiful views are. We were here during March, which is still wintertime, so the rain keeps the vegetation green. The green contrasting with the orange rocks is such a beautiful sight to see. But if you come during the summertime, most of the hike will not have that vegetation because it'll be dried out. Crazy that you're surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean the whole time and even get to look back and see Funchal from a distance. After an hour, the trail continues to get harder with some steep incline, especially when you want to get to that last viewpoint. You even have to climb up some makeshift ladders that kind of made the hike a little sketchy, so be careful with those steel ropes because they're damaged and they can cut your hand. In addition to all of that, there's no shade the entire time, so you will be sweating. Make sure to bring your sunscreen because this place will have you burnt in no time. After reaching the end and enjoying that epic viewpoint, we stopped at a cafe for some pastries and drinks. From here, you can actually get a boat ride back to the parking lot, so you won't even need to hike through all the crowds on the way back. We didn't do this, but it looked like a really amazing option because the boats have those really cool glass bottoms that you can see through, and they'll even take you through caves on your way back. On our way back to our car, there were hundreds of people on this trail. We couldn't believe our eyes, and it wasn't enjoyable whatsoever, so be ready for that. This is still a 100% must-do hike on Madeira, but like we said, go at sunrise or sunset to beat those crowds. Up next, we have number 2, Seixal Beach.
This black sand beach located on the northwest coast of the island is by far the best beach on Madeira. It's the best for many reasons, and the first is that Madeira is filled with mostly rocky beaches, but Seixal has soft, powdery sand which makes for a great place to lay out. Secondly, the setting of this beach is unbelievable, with the most stunning mountains surrounding it and a gorgeous village with those iconic orange rooftops. Lastly, on the other side of the beach are natural rock pools that you can go cliff jumping and swimming at. Our first time here was during sunrise one morning, and right away we knew this is why they called Madeira the Hawaii of Europe. Although there were a lot of clouds that morning, the sun peered through a little and it was just so magical there. We knew that very moment we wanted to come back during the middle of the day to go swimming, and that's exactly what we did. The first thing we did when we came back in the afternoon one day was go cliff jumping at the natural pools. They have this platform there and it's the perfect height, so it was so much fun running and jumping in the waters even though it was a bit chilly. After cliff jumping for a little bit, we hopped over to the beach and just hung out there for a while, watching people play soccer. It was just the coolest place ever. There isn't much parking here, but I still think you can come at any time and find a spot because people are always coming and going. And just when I thought it couldn't get any better, I put the drone up, and seeing that landscape from the sky made me appreciate where I was even more. If you want to get a quick lunch nearby, there's a delicious seafood restaurant right down the road called Arco Iris. I had the best grilled sea bass on the island right here, and it's super cheap too. One awesome thing about this place is that the workers there will grill fresh seafood right there in front of you on the side of the road. After hanging out at Seixal Beach for a couple hours, a great place to go next are the Porto Moniz Natural Pools because they're only a 10-minute drive down the road. I'm telling you, the north coast of the island was by far our favorite spot to drive around, especially pulling over at random villages along the coast. I mean, do you see this football pitch on a cliff right on the side of an ocean? No wonder Cristiano Ronaldo grew up here. This place was epic. Driving in Madeira can be a little scary sometimes, but for views like this, it's worth every penny and every panic attack. Now, last but not least, let's move on to number 1, the Pico de Pico hike. By far, one of the most legendary hikes on the island is called the Pico de Pico hike, which takes you from Madeira's 3rd highest peak all the way up to the highest peak on the island. There are 2 different options for this hike, so I will make sure to walk through each and let you know what I recommend doing. First things first, you'll be parking at Pico Areeiro, which is the location of the most famous sunrise viewpoint on Madeira. This is where hundreds, if not thousands of people come every single morning to sit above the clouds and watch the sun rise. I don't care how crowded it is, you have to come up here even if you aren't doing the hike because it's absolutely magical. No matter what your plans are, the most important thing you need to do is get up here 45 minutes before the sun rises, and that's because the parking lot fills up extremely fast. If you don't get a spot, you'll have to walk up 20 minutes from a different parking lot down below, which would really suck, especially if you are doing the hike. If you are not renting a car, you can scan this QR code, which is a round-trip transfer from Funchal, so you can get up to Pico Areeiro at the perfect time for sunrise and get brought back to your hotel or Airbnb in Funchal. Now let's talk about the hike because there are 2 different options you can choose from. The first option is doing this as a round-trip hike. It will be around 7 miles long or 11 kilometers and will take around 5.5 to 6.5 hours depending on how fast you hike it. The reason we didn't go with this option is because hiking back with these narrow trails and tunnels with thousands of people to pass did not sound enjoyable at all. Now for option number 2, which is what we went with. First, you will hike from Pico Areeiro to Pico Ruivo, which will be around 4 miles or 6.5 kilometers and take around 3.5 to 4 hours long. After taking in those views at Pico Ruivo, you will then go on a very easy walk for 1 hour to a place called Achada do Texeira. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And that's where you'll get picked up in a parking lot and taken back to your car at Pico Areeiro. I will have a link to the transfer we used down in the description below for you guys, or you could scan this QR code right here. We went with the 11:45 a.m. pickup option, and it gave us the perfect amount of time on the hike with some breaks and even a lunch at a cafe at the end. I would recommend booking this transfer at least 2 days before you plan on doing this hike because it can sell out fast. If you can't figure out the transfer or just forget to book it in time, there are taxis that wait in the parking lot, but they will upcharge pretty high prices, so bring some cash just in case. Like I was talking about before, Anna and I began the hike at 6:45 a.m. up at Pico Areeiro and made it to the most epic spot on the entire hike, nicknamed the Stairway to Heaven. The cool thing is, this spot is only 30 minutes away from the parking lot, so if you want some epic views, I would walk here and then head back to your car if you are not doing the hike. These shots you're seeing right now were taken at 7:15 a.m. right when the sun was rising, and this is a place and moment that we will never forget. One bad thing about starting this hike before the sun rises is that you actually miss the best view of the sunrise, but that was something we were willing to do to get ahead of the crowds. This hike can become pretty miserable once the crowds catch up to you, which is what happened to us when we took a 20-minute snack break later on in this hike. One fix to missing the best sunrise viewpoint is going to another viewpoint called Nino da Manta, which is only 20 minutes away from the parking lot and 10 minutes before hitting this epic Stairway to Heaven. Now, this Stairway to Heaven might look really scary in these shots, but the path is extremely safe with ropes on both sides. After walking down these stairs, it was another 2.5 hours downhill, which was super hard on our knees, so if you have hiking poles, you should definitely bring them. The weather up here can change really fast, so definitely bring layers, especially a raincoat. It was crazy because the first hour of this hike was great weather, but suddenly the clouds started rolling in and it even started raining for a while. Even though the clouds ruined the view most of the time, it was still really cool walking through the tunnels and on the edge of cliffs with amazing lush greenery everywhere. The last hour and a half to Pico Ruivo was all uphill with stairs, stairs, and more stairs. This hike is definitely not for the faint of heart and will be really hard for a lot of you, so make sure to bring lots of water and snacks. After 4 hours, we finally reached the peak and it was a 360-degree view of clouds, which was super disappointing. Now this is what Pico Ruivo looks like on a clear day, and we hope all of you get these conditions because if not, you might be a little sad, especially after all that work. There are bathrooms and a cafe at the top of Pico Ruivo, but we were so tired of the crappy weather, so we just wanted to get back to our car ASAP. We walked another 45 minutes to the parking lot at Achada do Texeira, and there was a cafe there, so we ended up getting some pastries while we waited for our ride. Once we got picked up, it was a beautiful 1-hour ride all the way back to our car at Pico Areeiro. I hope this video helped you as much as possible with this hike, and I am so sorry if you get unlucky with the weather. But no matter what, go get some pancha and some Nikitas to celebrate finishing this once-in-a-lifetime hike.